All right. So welcome back to the class. I hope the screen is visible to all of you. Yesterday we discussed about more in detail about the different relationship between the class diagrams and different classes and how they're related to each other. We talked about multiplicities also. Today, with the use of one example, we will try to understand how to create a class diagram step by step. Now, it is very easy to get intimidated when we look at class diagrams, particularly which are a bit complex in nature, and we think with ourselves whether or not how will we be able to develop such a kind of diagram which is able to showcase the deeper details in the software that is about to be implemented. So there are certain things that need to be kept in mind, and there is one. So it's one thing to understand the steps to create class diagram and to read the examples. It's completely another thing to use these steps when you're actually trying to create your own class diagrams. So naturally, these are the few steps that are used to create class diagram. First of all, you identify the classes. And to be able to identify the classes, you really need to understand your problem statement pretty well. And obviously, when you start off with a problem statement, you never really begin with a creation of class diagram at the front. The good thing about all of you is that you have reached a certain level of familiarity with the projects that you are doing. So it will be easier to communicate with the project that you are making and then going on to develop the class diagram. So you identify classes as the first step. Basically, that means you try to identify, are there any roles that are getting played, any events that are crucial, or any interactions. So all these things, any particular nouns or noun phrases in the problem descriptions. So these can be considered as possible class candidates. After you have identified the classes, and here I'm not talking about identifying their attributes or operations. You just identify the classes and then you try to find the association between the different classes. So, and how different classes are associated with each other, and how they're communicating with each other. So for example, if there is a professor class and there is a students class, then definitely the association between the two would be that of teaching. So generally, the upper level relationship is association, but when you go on to describe it, normally a function is getting performed. So there's always a verb that is associated between two classes which are associated, that tells you about the nature of association between these two classes. So you have identified the classes, you have tried to identify the associations. One thing to remember is that since association can be a simple association, aggregation, or composition, it cannot always be easier to identify the deeper level of associations. So in that case, just start off with a simple association which would be a bidirectional association, and as and when you refine and tune your diagram, then you can reason whether or not to go for aggregation or composition. So after you have identified the classes and sort of detected the kind of associations, then you go on to develop a rough class diagram. After that, you try to fill in the multiplicity for the different classes. So you determine the number of occurrences of one class for single occurrence of the associated class. So just like yesterday we had seen, there are different ways to fill in the multiplicity. So you obviously you discuss it among your team members and you reason how to assign the multiplicity to each of the classes. Later on, you identify the attributes of the classes that you have identified. And then after you have identified the attributes, which are basically the properties, and then you go on to identify the behaviors or the methods in those classes. So you specify the operations that are required for each class. So after this, so this is your first crude version of the class diagram. and then you go on to review your diagram and fine tune it. So definitely, to be able to review your diagram, you would want to discuss among your team, and also with someone who is sort of mentoring you in creating the class diagram or the overall project. So you would like to seek the feedback of everyone who is associated with the project. So, and this can be an iterative process. So after you are satisfied with that every information that is expected to sort of demonstrate your system has been put in the class diagram, at that point of time you can say that okay, this class diagram seems sufficient enough, and then from this we can move on to the coding aspects. So let us take an example to understand how to create a class diagram. So suppose IIIT Pune has several departments, academic departments, and each department is managed by a chair and at least one professor. So chair is also basically, the head of the department, something like that, the HOD. And each department has at least one professor. So professors must be assigned to one, but they can be assigned to multiple possible departments also. This usually happens when there is a shortage of resources and the departments are more. So people are handling multiple responsibilities. And at least one professor teaches each course, but a professor may be on a sabbatical and not teach any course. And each course may be taught by more than once by different professors. So when you look at this particular example, what do you think could be the possible classes when you look at this example of a university having multiple departments? So, which are the classes that stand out immediately after reading this kind of description? So, go back to what we have understood about identification of classes. Uh, there could be some entities which are performing some operations. Yeah. So, lecturers. Yeah, lecturers could be your classes. So, we would call them as professors. In this particular example, students could be definitely uh, the classes, departments. Yes. What else? So what do you mean assets, Tarun? Okay, yeah. So, okay, chairperson could be a class. Anything else we are missing here? So since in a university is definitely made up of different departments. They have professors. Each department has a chair. Definitely, university has students. What is the missing link here? How are the students and professors connected? Courses. Correct. So, the university or different departments offer different courses. So, courses also could be one of the possible classes. So, suppose these are the possible class candidates. So, departments are there, then the department chair is there, and professor is there, and course is there. So, now you have identified the classes. What was the second step in our creation of the class diagram that we just discussed? After identification of classes, what are we supposed to do? So after you have identified the classes, you next find the association between the different classes you have identified. So note that we are moving very step by step. So you have identified the classes, and now you go on to find the associations. So normally it is advisable to create a matrix to identify, and to specify the associations between the different classes you have identified. So because in this case there are four classes, so you will have this kind of matrix, and in that you can specify what are the relationships between the different classes. So for example, a department is managed by a chair. A department is assigned a professor. And do not look at this bracket aggregate. We can come to this later. So, but at the first level, the association. So, see, using this way, you are trying to qualify the nature of the association between different classes. And you can definitely use different words as long as it is able to convey the meaning. So you could have also said that department is headed by a chair. So in this case, it's written managed by. Then department is assigned a professor, and the department offers course. So these are the association of department with all these three classes. Similarly, now the chair manages the department, and the chair is a type of professor, and then there is no relationship between chair and course. Uh, what do you think is the justification behind that there is no relationship between chair and course? What do you think would be the reason? Because as important it is to identify the association between classes, it is also extremely vital to know when that association does not exist. So what do you think would be the reason that or should there be any relationship association between chair and course? Yeah. So, correct, Prasad. Thank you. So, as important it is to identify the roles played by different classes, as we had seen in understanding the functional requirements, that it is not only important to understand what the system is doing, but also what it is not doing. So, similarly, for the classes also, the chair is not directly involved with course. It's so there is no relationship between the chair and course. It's directly related to the department. In the third row, you can see that a professor is assigned to a department and the professor teaches the course. Now, why do you think this particular cell is empty between professor and chair? Or you could have written something else here. So what is the relationship between professor and chair? So Prasad, you mentioned that chair is supervising a professor. Okay. So remember that there's an inheritance relationship between chair and professor. So so when we say chair is a professor, so professor is someone who is sort of a parent of chair. So there may not be some association between them. So there is no verbal, like you really don't know what verb to assign to this relationship, because it's not an association. It's a completely different thing. It's an inheritance, or it's a sort of a professor is the sort of parent, and one of them is chosen to be the chair of the department. So that's a good attempt, but the chair is not actually supervising the professor. The kind of relationship uh, cannot be reduced to an association. It's basically inheritance. So this difference is important to remember. And this is coming directly from the problem statement. So if the problem statement or the specifics of how the system at least on a conceptual level, is functioning is not clear, then it will be reflected in the voids in the class diagram that you make. Lastly, the course is offered by the department and course is taught by the professor. So in this particular example, there are only four classes. So that is why it is easier to find the association and sort of draw this table. But when you're working on a larger and complex system, you might like to identify the different chunks of the software, and for each chunk, you might want to create a class diagram. So after this, so you have identified the classes, you have found the possible association between the different classes. Now you go on to develop a very rough diagram. So that's the first level class diagram that you make. So it looks something like this. So your professor is teaching a course. The department has, you know, contains the course and it also is assigned to professor. So there is an aggregate relationship between the course and the professor. So the creator has gone one step further from the association relationship to the aggregate relationship. And then the chair manages the department. So you should also note this kind of arrow, which is actually trying to show how the verb is flowing. So professor is teaching the course, chair is managing the department, and chair. So this basically shows that chair is inherited by the professor. So there could be multiple professors. One of them is chosen to be the chair. It may have characteristics of the professor, but in addition to that, there may be multiple other attributes or functions. So now that you have identified the rough class diagram, let us talk about the multiplicity. So for professor and course, uh, how do you think is professor related to the course? So what could be the multiplicity in case of professor and course relationship? So professor is associated with dash courses. So what would be the nature of multiplicity in this particular example? So Tarun, you are saying a professor can teach exactly one course. Is that what you are saying? Okay. So Garvit is mentioning that professor can teach one or many courses. But if we go back to the problem statement, here it is written at least one professor teach each course, but a professor may be on sabbatical and not teach any course. So when you read this particular line, how does then the multiplicity change between professor and course? Okay. So here is this. It mentions that at least one professor teaches each course, but a professor may be on sabbatical. So sabbatical generally means a leave, a planned leave, and not teach any course. So when you read this particular line or statement related to the example, how do you think the multiplicity between the professor and course changes? Yeah. So as Ayush has mentioned, then in that particular case, we can say that a professor can teach zero or many courses. If it would not have been specified, if it would have been specified that every professor has to take at least one course, and this sabbatical constraint was not mentioned, then you could have gone with 1 to n. So depending on how the system is expected to behave, how the software is expected to behave, you specify these multiplicities. Okay, so now that we know that professor can teach zero or many courses, what do you think is the opposite relationship? A course is associated with what could be the multiplicity in the opposite direction? So you mean to say that a course is associated with one or many professors? That would mean that a course can be taught by one or many professors, a particular course. So yes, so at least one professor is there, but when we say at least, then also mean that it can be one or more. But a particular course generally will be taught by only one professor. At least that is what I think. So, what we are trying to understand here is that we are looking at the multiplicities between the different classes, and based on that, we are trying to understand how to assign these multiplicities. So, once you have identified these multiplicities, this particular diagram can happen. So, in this, it is showing that a professor is associated with zero or many courses, and the course may be associated with zero or many professors. So in this particular example, they have also said that the zero to star kind of multiplicity is there. So in this particular situation, that they are saying that there could be courses for which there may be no professors in this particular example. So similarly, here you try to identify the different kind of multiplicity. So a department will have one or many courses, but each course may belong to only one department. And similarly, a department can have one or many professors, and a professor can belong to one or many departments. So in this particular example, also they had, if they had mentioned that professor can only belong to one department, then this kind of multiplicity would not be there. And it is a slightly tricky exercise. It comes with much more practice and brainstorming, and but there is always a possibility of debate and dissension. But and there will often be situations when you start off with a particular class diagram and you go on to implement it, and while you're actually implementing and testing, you realize that okay, this particular multiplicity that I had mentioned before in software design was not really accurate, and let me go back and try to look at it with fresh eyes. So now that you have identified the multiplicity, then you identify the attributes in the classes. So a course will have name, it will have schedule and term. A professor will have a name, employee ID. The department will have its name, and the chair has a certain attribute, is chair. So all these things are decided after you have identified the multiplicities. Please note that note these words accompanying these association. If it would have been just these lines without these sort of identifiers, it would be very difficult to understand what exactly is the nature of relationship. So usage of these words actually simplifies the understanding of the class diagram. Although for different examples that you show a sea of class diagrams later on, you might not always find the usage of these label verbs, but it is a good practice to introduce them, because as developers, when you look at your diagram, you may understand it because you're actually working on that problem statement. But when you have to show it to someone who has newly joined your team and will be working on the similar code, then for them it is easier to understand and also saves a lot of time. So make it a practice to find out these verbs, and these can be identified by the matrix of relationships that you had created in the second step of finding the associations. So after you have identified the attributes, now you go on to identify the operations for different classes. So these are the different methods that you can provide to the different departments based on how you imagine the system will work. So this is the very first crude version of your class diagram. It is important to remember at this step from where we had started. We had started from a very preliminary understanding of the different classes. From there, we started from classes. Try to imagine from where we start and where we have arrived. we start off with these classes, then we assign the association between different classes. Okay, then we create a rough class diagram, and as and when we are moving stepwise, do not try to think in terms of that the diagram is becoming complex, but rather in terms of that it is becoming more informative to understand how the system is expected to at least behave theoretically. So when you draw the class diagram, later you identify the multiplicities, you identify the attributes for different classes, you filled in the behaviors or operations for these different classes. And then, so this was a brief example to show how you can approach creating class diagrams. Now, as I mentioned, hopefully this small example was clear to all of you. And when you actually do it by yourself, it will become more natural for you to understand all these things. Now, sometimes, so this was a very simple example. Sometimes what can happen is that the system may be too complex. So one class diagram may not be sufficient to explain what exactly is happening in the overall system. So in that case, what you do is you try to identify the major functional chunks of your overall system. So suppose if you're trying to create a hospital management system, then when you think of in terms of decomposing the system, decomposing the hospital management system, you realize okay, there should be a system that handles the patient, there should be a subsystem that handles the staff, then one that is dealing with consultations, and fourth that is dealing with accounting. So what you will do is, rather than creating one giant class diagram for hospital management system, what you try to do is you try to take one particular chunk of the management system, and then you try to create a class diagram for that particular chunk. And similarly, so then later on, you can, when you look at these different chunks and then see how they are connected to each other, then you can see that how they are working in synchronicity to explain the hospital management system. So uh, please note that even identifying these complex cases into sub cases will demand a lot of thinking also and brainstorming from your end. And I will be reviewing your decomposition diagrams tomorrow, and that bit will be become much more clearer. So once you have identified these sub chunks, then you go on to follow the steps that we have just discussed for patient class diagram, for staff, consultation, and accounting. So what this helps is that you can understand a complex class diagram by its subclasses diagram. So that serves the purpose as well. So basically, when you will be going to implement the system, you might want to implement these things and then combine them together to find the hospital management system. So this is a bit of a patient class diagram that that the authors have created. Uh, so here also they have followed the same conventions, although they have not mentioned the name behind the associations. But I would not advise you to do that because it is really not clear to the reader or the reviewer how they are associated. But I'm just trying to show you using this particular example that how the creators of hospital management system have sort of disaggregated their giant system into different pieces and then tried to create the class diagram for these things. So just look at it from the example perspective. And similarly for the staff class details diagram, so they have identified the staff, and the doctor and nurse are sort of part of the staff. The doctor is associated with doctor table, nurse has a corresponding nurse table, and then there's some boundary which is the first level interface for the staff. And moving on to, there's a consulting class diagram, so there can be consultations which is associated with physician. Then definitely the time has to come into picture. So the calendar class is there, and the prescription class is there. Then there is someone who is managing the consultation, so the consultation manager class is there, and then schedule form class is there. So basically what is happening is, you can just imagine if all these class diagrams would have been put in one diagram, then it would have been extremely tedious to understand them. And then later the payment class is there. For that, a bill is needed and a payment is needed. So this is how, just trying to explain, because when you make your class diagrams, and if you realize that the system is quite complex, and it is very easy to get into complexity when we are dealing with large software products. So it is important to remember even this kind of approach. So hopefully you got a bit of taste in class diagrams and how to create the class diagrams, and it is something that is perfected over a period of time with a lot of reviews and brainstorming. And don't worry at all, we will take this uh, very smoothly in our lab sessions. All right. So now that we have understood the basics of class diagram, the building blocks of class diagram, and we have seen a couple of examples in the association, aggregation, composition, and also how to create the class diagrams. We must also know what are the strengths of class diagram. Like, why should we even bother about creating a class diagram? So, as mentioned before in the introduction to class diagrams, they are sort of static diagrams which represent structural representation of the system. So they allow you a deeper level peek into the system that you are expected to develop, or in certain cases expected to manage. So there are, when we talk about maintainability, there are four types of maintainability. Mostly maintenance could be fixing the bugs, but even when you are trying to fix the bugs, you need to understand how the overall system is working. So class diagrams can provide a good platform to understand the structure of the system, not only if you're going to develop it, but if you're going to work on an existing system, then also they help you to augment your understanding of that particular system. The other advantage is that because they demonstrate dependencies between classes, they foster the understanding of the sequence in which messages are sent between the corresponding objects. So you know which class is communicating with other class, and which class is inherited by the other classes. So all these kind of relationships are clear to you, which lead to deeper level of understanding between the multiple objects in your program. Then multiplicities can provide some information on how to model your database. And fourthly, class diagrams, because we are literally identifying the attributes and methods, so it is a bit closer to coding than the use case diagrams, or even the uh, DFDs or context diagrams that you have sort of been familiar with. And multiplicities in class diagram aid in creation of sometimes RDBMS by showing which table requires foreign keys. So that is an important concept also to remember. But normally we don't talk much about it in the software engineering class, because it is also related to DBMS. And in DBMS you have an analogous diagram which is called as the ER diagram. So if you really try to see ER diagram and put it, so if you create an ER diagram for the project and create a class diagram, you will be able to see some of the many similarities. Now that we know at least on surface level what are the strengths of the class diagram, just remember that it provides you enough confidence to develop your system before you are going to implement the system. So that is basically, personally, I would say class diagram helps in. And but don't feel that once you have made the class diagram, now that you're moving to coding, so that communication has snapped. There will be situations when you are actually in the coding phase or implementation phase, and then you are testing something, and then you go back to the class diagram just to review whether or not something that you put in the class diagram was incomplete. And while you are actually implementing, you might want to go back to the class diagram and see whether or not something needs to change. So I always say everything is a work in progress. So is the class diagram, so is the coding. And even when we talk about maintenance of the code, that also says that our software is actually a work in progress. But what about the limitations of class diagrams? So there are a couple of limitations of class diagrams. First of all, it's a static structure diagram, so you really don't know the behavioral information, and there is no concept of time in the class diagram. Although I don't really believe in time in general, but in class diagrams also you cannot show an if then else scenario, which makes them extremely weak in representing the dynamics of the system. So sometimes you might also want to know the dynamic way of modeling the system, and tomorrow you will learn about that when you are creating your own state diagrams. So that is one of the weaknesses of class diagrams. But uh, see the trade-off between the strengths and the weaknesses. Nothing can be fully of advantage. There always are associated cons. But if we focus on what actually the class diagrams are providing us, so then it becomes very easier to sort of understand what they're contributing to, and if they are not leading to a deeper understanding, then there is always some other sources which will help us to understand the dynamic behavior of the system. The other trouble with class diagrams is the nature of the association. It is sometimes gets very confusing very quickly to identify the nature of relationships. So whenever you are in doubt, just put an association relationship. And although class diagram help in the coding bit, but generally, you would want to look at the advanced level class diagrams with extra implementation classes, because there are much more deeper level of classes. Like in the hospital management, we had seen that there are class, and then there are class managing class also. So all these level of details are also critical, which may not be able to be shown in class diagrams, but overall it provides you a view of how the system is expected to behave. When you go on to further refine and tune, so that is why the last step in the steps to create class diagram was that you refine your system. So then you can identify the deeper level of classes which are critical for class diagram. So that is the weakness of class diagrams. Now there are certain errors also that often are seen when you create class diagrams. So there are certain common errors in certain class diagrams, and then we will see how to rectify them. So to understand the distinction between inheritance and association, so these are two very different things. So sometimes it can get confusing which kind of relationship to use, but your contextual understanding will help you to make the right decision. So your contextual understanding will for you to understand which kind of relationship to use. Don't get too much caught up in identifying the right kind of association, at least at the first level, crude level diagram. You move on gradually from association if you really feel that there is a strong reason to identify aggregation or composition. Then you discuss among your team members or your project managers or technical managers, and then you identify that kind of association. But don't spend too much time bothering about the nature of the association. Addition of multiplicities is important in the class diagram. If, however, you do not know, then you can just add star or n to indicate unknown multiplicities, or you can also mention in the bracket that it's not currently known. But adding of multiplicities again helps in understanding of the overall class diagram, because it leads to deeper level of understanding. And lastly, inheritance relationship do not have multiplicities, because we are not talking about association here. One class is literally derived from another class, so there is literally no meaning of adding multiplicities in inheritance relationship. So these are some of the errors that are generally made, and other than that, I think the first crucial step is to identify the very classes of your overall system. So we will take this object oriented design class diagram step by step in our lab class, and using that it will become much more easier for you to gain a perspective on object oriented designing. And some of you may have also implemented some chunk of your system already. So in that case, try to look at what you have implemented, or at least a piece that you have implemented with all the diagrams that you're creating in the class. Because I'm sure that when we create the diagrams and when we try to look at something that we have already implemented, we gain a deeper level perspective on how we are going in terms of product development in a particular case. So, with that, we come to the end of object oriented designing. And mostly, always remember that there are two types of modeling: static modeling and dynamic modeling. And we have covered the use case modeling, the DFTs, and the class diagrams, and also the state diagrams. And for tomorrow's lab, I will be reviewing your context diagrams because last week we lost our lab. So I'll be reviewing your context diagrams, decomposition diagrams, while you will be simultaneously working on first level DFT, second level DFTs, and developing the state diagrams. So for tomorrow's lab, these will be the planned activities. I will also release a formal, presentation that will show you what is expected in tomorrow's lab. So that is all from my side for today's class. With that, we sort of uh, wind up our discussion on software designing. From next week, we will talk about coding, then go on to debugging. So, what is the type schedule? I did not understand. Garvit, could you please elaborate?
Ma'am, we have like BTP presentation on Saturday, and then HCI presentation on Sunday, and come then CNS exam also on Sunday.